qualquer cosa lo fa. most well, critiquing that 90s thing there. Yeah. And it's talking about how they didn't like how he was talking. It was like they took away they he had cancer in the first place. Like and then voice actor for him was the first Max Henry. That actor. Dan Castellaneta and Wallace the fucking old dude from everything. Rex on Toy Story. Or Wallace Stevens. Wallace. He's on that. He's the big nose guy. That you get the first in the 90s. She's here with me. Come with me.
Hi, hello. Hi, hello. Hi, hello. Hi, hello. Hi, hello. Um, sorry it took so long. Damn, 22 minutes. I was just saying goodnight to my husband and stuff. Anyway, I'm gonna stream for a bit. Maybe for a long while. I'm gonna try for a while. Cause I ain't got nothing going on. It's 12 a.m. right now. I'm gonna put on something to listen to for a little bit. Video games and gay anime. I've been addicted to this one song. I have no idea where it's from. It might be from an anime. It's not playing on my headphones. Bitch. There we go.
今日もあなたのこと大好きでしたとそっと胸に思う
I was working.
日々がずっと続きますようにって星降る夜空に願ってみたんだ思い返せばほら泣き疲れた日もあったけれどそんな夜をいくつも越えてたどり着いた場所そして幕開けたストーリーなんだか夢みたいなリアル少し照れ笑いながらも繋いだ手はきっと数えきれぬほどの愛と欲が溢れ出してるどうしようもない暗い
目を閉じても消えない不安を閉じ込めた人で続くずつここには何もなくただ揺らめく神の味噌汁暗い海暗い底に沈みもがいても帰れないうつく靴届くわけもなくたださまよう Paranoid Cause it's sad so I let me down I can't live anymore Paranoid But I'm mad so I let me down I can't live anymore Paranoid Back in the games I thought to be sad so sorrow next to the play Took it to lose my head
Yeah.
Paranoid I can take it so cause less than any more to want to play Cause took it again this is my last take off揺れるどこ生まれるともっともし込んで Paranoid But it's dead so I let it down I can't live anymore Paranoid There's a mess so I let it down I can't live anymore Paranoid Hands is neck is gone and come and take on the mask and break a pocket to lose my head oh yeah Paranoid 曲が敵にそう触れるまで愛も変わらずプレイが解けて現実まで Take off
の世はわからないことがたくさんある。どんな風が吹いても負けない人になろう。それでも弱いやつ必ずいるもんだ。守ってあげましょう。それが強さなんだ。とにかく鍛えましょう。痛みをビビらずに。後悔の終わりはいつも昨日のはず。今日から一番たくましいのだ。お待たせしました。すごいやつ。今日から一番かっこいいのだ。バリバリ最強ナンバーワン。ような指先は言葉を欲しがらない。上肩に合う友の抜
きることもない孤独が好きなんてかっこつけしでしょ一人で泣いてみな大空黒つぼでしょ考えてもごらん仲間は素敵だね一人より大勢強いに決まってる
No one was left who could remember how it had happened. How the world had fallen under darkness. At least no one who would do anything. No one who would oppose the robots. No one who would challenge their power. Or so Dr. Wiley believed.
the dark streets of the city. Dr. Light lived in a rundown tenement. An eccentric and brilliant man, Light was a loner, a thinker, a man of ideas. Ideas forbidden in Wiley's society. The society for which he worked, the society in which he lived, the society he would set free. And so Light worked far into the night, where the watchful eyes of Wiley's robots weren't upon him. He had set his skillful hands to the task of creating a device to bring about a change, to create a machine to bring freedom, to create a man to save the world. 12 years Light worked, and on a cold night, the year 2000X, Proto Man was born. A perfect man, an unbeatable machine, hell-bent on destroying every evil standing between man and freedom. Built for one purpose, to destroy Wiley's army of evil robots. Ready, willing, prepared to fight.
I'll take 5 at one time, knock you down in a row. Dodging knives with the quickness and a kick to your throat. I got that kung fu, kill you without thinking attitude. I'll straight up fucking Bruce Lee and kick your ass to the moon. So don't regardless and say I'm on time, I got T.I.L.E. I don't know what exactly that means, I don't speak no Chinese. One with my foot, one with my fist. One not breathing no more, now hear this. I got that fucking Chuck Norris Texas Ranger attitude. Straight up smack you like a bitch and then be laughing at you. You see this dojo ain't big enough for the both of us, G. I gotta kung fu you before you fool me. I take 6 at one time, knock you down in a row. You thought the song was over, but it goes and goings and goes. They took my hoe, now I'm throwing all of the bows. We're going toe to toe, yo, I'm jamming toes in your nose. In the rain or in the snow, I got the funkiest flow.
You don't wanna test me, that's for sure.
ず飛び込んだらいい。今日をきっかけに人生が逆転することもある。前向きになろう。起こっている物事は全てつながっている。微笑んで話しかけよう。それはいつでも誰にでもできること。そうすれば仲間ができる。その数だけ感謝が返ってくる。どんな困難も何らかの方法できっと回避できる。自分に起こる事件や悩みには必ずそれぞれに意味がある。解決できない問題はない。全ては絶対うまくいく。ネガティブな言葉は考え方までネガティブにさせる。ポジティブでいるなら何もかもが上昇し、そして天国に行ける。
誰がきっと出会えるような魔法をかけて両手をそっと重ねてほら微笑むから本当の気持ち気づかないふりして突然二人恋に落ちた抱きしめたいの今までずっと言えないまま隠してたの強がってるそれだけなの見つけ出して待ち合わせまであと5分待っててその後二人恋に落ち
Let me be with you. Let me be with you.
泣きたくなるの繋いだ手をそっと離すとき不安になるの不安になるの
Hey, I'm gonna bio break and I'll be right back. I'm just gonna go to commercial. I'll be RP.
White Ranger, activate Saba, the talking saber, and follow his instructions.
Tiger Sword power, now!
Now you're ready to fight. And sound the call to battle. And now, really grab the power. The Power Cannon. Its 5 Powerball ammunition load is harmless to humans, but not to evil space aliens. Add even more power with the Power Gun Sword. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers from Bandai. Grab the power.
And Mr. Freeze aims to chill Batman next, but not anti-freeze Batman. Mr. Freeze and his Ice Zapper are out of control, but Batman's ready.
Freeze, Batman! Take this, hotshot! Ah!
Only Batman's Ice Hammer vehicle is tough enough to drill through this ice storm.
Chill out, Mr. Freeze!
Now the best is hotter than ever. Batman! Vehicle and figures each sold separately.
The hearts of men, the Shadow knows. The evil Khan calls on his fiendish friend Dr. Makino. But Ninja Shadow with blazing eyes has the power to stop them. Makino and Khan take off. Ninja Shadow chases them in his Mirage, each sold separately. Will they get away? Who knows? The Shadow knows. Now you can get a free Shadow Agent's ring.
It changes!
Just like in the movie. Send in 2 proofs of purchase from any Shadow toys for your free Shadow hologram ring.
Wow!
The Shadow knows.
Now you can be as clever as Kevin with Tiger's new Talkboy tape recorder.
Stop drooling on me! Stop drooling on me!
It even has speed control.
Hi, kids, we're home early.
Hi, kids, we're home early.
Tiger's new Talkboy tape recorder comes with audio cassette. Now have more Home Alone fun with Tiger's new Home Alone 2 handheld game.
Savage Hunter, Aliens vs. Predator, with awesome new Predators. Clan Leader attacks with whipping dreadlocks. And Stalker, glowing in the dark, fires his spear. Suddenly, flipping up his attack spikes, the wild boar alien charges. And the ferocious mother alien in her monstrous hive traps Spiketail, then covers him in ooze.
Ooze 'em!
Who will survive? Aliens vs. Predator. Queen Hive playset comes with mother alien figure and ooze. Other figures sold separately.
It's a countdown to the ultimate showdown, and Guile is going wild, diving into adventure, stalking the shadows, blasting like a blizzard, his punching sonic boom.
Spells on Bison's doom!
Capcom Street Fighter, figure sold separately.
Extreme Hero G.I. Joe! It's the all-new G.I. Joe Extreme! Bigger, bolder, and battle-ready! Lieutenant Stone leads the all-new Joes with Ultra Slam firepower against the evil Iron Claw and his Scar forces. Scar's Bone Splitter tank is brutal, but the 2-in-1 Sand Striker strikes back with long-distance Scar resistance. Extreme times call for extreme heroes. It's the all-new G.I. Joe Extreme. Figures and vehicles each sold separately.
Oh, but we're gonna stop them anyway! Send in the Marines! We're the Space Marines. Drake, Ripley, A-Bone, Bishop, and I'm Hicks, armed with the latest high-tech heavy metal.
Look out, Hicks! The Queen's gonna crown ya! My bug walker's on a roll! Bull alien attacking! Eat torch, bug brain!
Alien invasion problem? Send in the Marines!
Aliens! Send in the Marines!
Space Marines, aliens!
Cool! It makes sound!
Is that so?
Skeleton!
The Power Sword makes 8 action sounds. It lights up with power. You can be a hero. With the He-Man Power Sword. Send for a He-Man video for 99 cents and postage with specially marked vehicle.
Up to the challenge of Cube It Up, the amazing motorized cube that spins by itself. It's got a motor inside. How do you play? Good question. Cube It Up calls out a color, which you have to keep on top to rack up points. Yes. Sounds easy? Well, Hotshot, it's not. Because the cube's always turning. You can play by yourself or with friends, if you've got any. Rack up the most points and you're a Cube It Up master. Awesome. Very good, Cube Boy. Ready for level 2? Level 2? Cube It Up. The challenge is in the cube. Each sold separately. Batteries not included.
City after city, Godzilla's destroying everything. General, who's gonna save us from? Excuse me. Hello? Godzilla! The Godzilla Force and Mecha Godzilla.
The Godzilla force is here. The supersonic Garuda warship fires laser missiles and a retrievable grappling hook. Can the giant Mecha Godzilla stop Godzilla, king of the monsters? The battle begins! All figures sold separately, batteries not included from Trendmasters.
Hey, dude, bedtime?
Do you A, obey the babysitter, B, beg to stay up, C, hit her with thermonuclear breath? It's Godzilla, king of the monsters. His eyes flash as he roars. His arms swing, feet stomp, tail whips. Godzilla rules. Collect Godzilla and all his friends of destruction, then fight the ultimate battle where no one is safe.
Cool hair.
Batteries not included. From Trendmasters, yes.
Fighter's Kane, bashing and banging till only Blue and Guile remain in the Street Fighter 2 tabletop game. Build your punching power before your energy runs out. Are you ready for Hurricane kicks? Can you come back from Sonic Boom? Street Fighter 2 electronic tabletop game.
Next.
It's time to get real.
It's showtime. Hey, annoying hombres making you do stuff you hate. Don't lose your head. Make them history. Think that's scary? Watch this. Whoa! That went right through me.
Did you see that?
Now watch this. First, a double team. Now, a double scare. Nobody beats me. So when you want to scare somebody, give me a call.
Beetlejuice! 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 Gotta go.
Terminator with the Bio-Flesh Regenerator.
I'm back! Yeah? Think again. Battle damage.
Add flesh compound.
Terminator created.
Terminator.
I'm back!
Got my looks, my laugh, my voice, and all. Can I do that? If you can't have me, get the next best thing. Talking Urkel. Just pull my string. You want to know? He's Talking Urkel, though.
Favorite pet?
Yes.
So what's that make me? Fish sticks?
Oh, are you hungry?
Oh, no. By all means, feed it. Play till your heart's content.
Look, Goldie. I took good care of her, and she changed again.
Change? How about changing some water here?
Katie, bus is here.
So Tamagotchi can pause. I can pause too. Want to see that again?
Hatch a Tamagotchi, the one and only, from Bandai. Each sold separately.
Welcome to Skull Dungeon.
Wow!
Mighty Max!
Smasher, get up! Your brain donor is here. Me want brain. No way, slime face. Whoa! Watch out for that first step. It's not over, Mighty Max.
Will Max get fried? His fate is in your hands. Mighty Max, Mighty Max! You can collect all his adventure sets, each sold separately. Mighty Max figure included, from Mattel.
Is phantasm. But first, the Joker must be stopped. Only Total Armor Batman can prepare to do battle with Jetpack Joker.
Time for a little pick-me-up.
This clown's in for a total surprise. That nightmare is over, but Phantasm remains. So Batman powers up with the electronic crime stalker vehicle.
Sounds cool.
It's a fight to the finish, but Phantasm's no match for the power of Batman. Vehicle and figures each sold separately.
Graveyard Ghoulies. Squeeze the colored goop into the mold, or use glow goop and out pop body parts. Stomach, heart, brain. It's Graveyard Ghoulies.
Graveyard Ghoulies are a creepy crawler fright, so beware of what happens at night.
Creepy Crawlers Workshop. Your parents put it together. Light bulb not included. Graveyard Ghoulies, mold pack, and glow goop each sold.
Team yet, Capcom Street Fighter 2! No way! Wait! There's Guile, Ryu, Zangief, Blanca, and Dalcine! What's a Dalsum? Oh, some with real ninja moves! Hey!
But Troopers get Street Fighters 2!
Vega, Sagat, Balrog!
And me, Elbashan!
They look unbeatable! You know them, you love them! So correcto! Capcom Street Fighter 2 figures each sold separately. Oh, I like them!
Repulsive. Hideous. Disgusting. Obnoxious. Revolting. Wretched. Sickening. Blurp balls. They make you want to blurp.
White Ranger. Activate Saba, the talking saber, and follow his instructions.
Tiger Sword power, now!
Now you're ready to fight. And sound the call to battle. And now, really grab the power. The power cannon. Its 5 Powerball ammunition load is harmless to humans, but not to evil space aliens. Add even more power with the Power Gun Sword. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers from Bandai. Grab the power.
And Mr. Freeze aims to chill Batman next, but not Anti-Freeze Batman. Mr. Freeze and his Ice Zapper are out of control, but Batman's ready.
Freeze, Batman!
Take this, hot shot!
Ah!
Only Batman's Ice Hammer vehicle is tough enough to drill through this ice storm.
Chill out, Mr. Freeze!
Now the best is hotter than ever. Batman! Vehicle and figures each sold separately.
The hearts of men, the Shadow knows. The evil Khan calls on his fiendish friend Dr. Makino. But Ninja Shadow with blazing eyes has the power to stop them. Makino and Khan take off. Ninja Shadow chases them in his Mirage, each sold separately. Will they get away? Who knows? The Shadow knows. Now you can get a free Shadow Agent's ring.
It changes.
Just like in the movie. Send in 2 proofs of purchase from any Shadow toys for your free Shadow hologram ring.
Wow.
The Shadow knows.
Now you can be as clever as Kevin with Tiger's new Talkboy tape recorder.
Stop drooling on me. Stop drooling on me.
It even has speed control.
Hi, kids. We're home early.
Hi, kids. We're home early.
Tiger's new Talkboy tape recorder comes with audio cassette. Now have more Home Alone fun with Tiger's new Home Alone 2 handheld game.
Savage Hunter, Aliens vs. Predator, with awesome new Predators. Clan Leader attacks with whipping dreadlocks. And Stalker, glowing in the dark, fires his spear. Suddenly, flipping up his attack spikes the wild boar alien charges. And the ferocious mother alien in her monstrous hive traps Spiketail, then covers him in ooze.
Ooze 'em.
Who will survive? Aliens vs. Predator. Queen Hive playset comes with mother alien figure and ooze. Other figures sold separately. It's a countdown to the ultimate showdown, and Guile is going wild, diving into adventure, stalking the shadows, blasting like a blizzard, his punching sonic boom.
Spells on Bison's doom.
Now comes Street Fighter, figure sold separately.
Extreme Hero G.I. Joe! The all-new G.I. Joe Extreme! Bigger, bolder, and battle-ready! Lieutenant Stone leads the all-new Joes with Ultra Slam firepower against the evil Iron Claw and his Scar forces. Scar's Bone Splitter tank is brutal, but the 2-in-1 Sand Striker strikes back with long-distance Scar resistance. Extreme times call for extreme heroes. It's the all-new G.I. Joe Extreme. Figures and vehicles each sold separately.
But we're gonna stop them anyway! Send in the Marines! We're the Space Marines! Drake, Ripley, A-Bone, Bishop, and I'm Hicks, armed with the latest high-tech heavy metal.
Look out, Hicks! The Queen's gonna crown ya! My bug walker's on a roll! Bull alien attacking! Eat torch, bug brain!
Alien invasion problem? Send in the Marines!
Aliens! Send in the Marines!
Space Marines, aliens!
Cool! It makes sound!
Is that so?
Skeleton!
The Power Sword makes 8 action sounds. It lights up with power. You can be a hero with the He-Man Power Sword. Send for a He-Man video for 99 cents and postage with specially marked vehicle.
Up to the challenge of Cube It Up, the amazing motorized cube that spins by itself. It's got a motor inside. How do you play? Good question. Cube It Up calls out a color. Red. Which you have to keep on top to rack up points. Yes. Sounds easy? Well, hotshot, it's not. Because the cube's always turning. You can play by yourself or with friends, if you've got any. Green. Rack up the most points and you're a Cube It Up master. Awesome. Very good, Cube Boy. Ready for level 2? Level 2? Cube It Up. The challenge is in the cube. Each sold separately. Batteries not included.
City after city, Godzilla's destroying everything!
General, who's gonna save us from... Excuse me. Hello? Godzilla!
The Godzilla Force and Mecha Godzilla.
The Godzilla Force is here. The supersonic Garuda warship fires laser missiles and a retrievable grappling hook. Can the giant Mecha Godzilla stop Godzilla, king of the monsters?
The battle begins!
All figures sold separately, batteries not included from Trendmasters.
Hey, dudes, bedtime?
Do you A, obey the babysitter, B, beg to stay up, C, hit her with thermonuclear breath?
It's Godzilla, king of the monsters. His eyes flash as he roars. His arms swing, feet stomp, tail whips. Godzilla rules. Collect Godzilla and all his friends of destruction, then fight the ultimate battle where no one is safe.
Cool hair.
Batteries not included. From Trendmasters, yes.
Fighter's Kane, bashing and banging till only Blue and Guile remain in the Street Fighter II tabletop game. Build your punching power before your energy runs out. Are you ready for Hurricane X? Can you come back from Sonic Boom? Street Fighter II electronic tabletop game.
Next.
It's time to get real.
It's showtime. Hey, annoying hombres making you do stuff you hate. Don't lose your head. Make them history. Think that's scary? Watch this. Whoa! That went right through me.
Did you see that?
Now watch this. First, a double team. Now, a double scare. Nobody beats me. So when you want to scare somebody, give me a call.
Beetlejuice! Beetlejuice! Beetlejuice!
Gotta go.
Terminator with the Bioflesh Regenerator.
I'm back! Yeah? Think again.
Battle damage.
Add flesh compound.
Terminator created.
Terminator.
I'm back!
Got my looks, my laugh, my voice, and all. Can I do that? So if you can't have me, get the next best thing. Talking Urkel. I just pulled my string. You wanna know? He's Talking Urkel, though.
Favorite pet?
Yes.
So what's that make me? Fish sticks?
Oh, are you hungry?
Oh, no. By all means, feed it. Play till your heart's content.
Look, Goldie. I took good care of her, and she changed again.
Change? How about changing some water here?
Katie, Buzz is here.
So Tamagotchi can pause. I can pause too. Want to see that again?
Hatch a Tamagotchi, the one and only from Bandai. Each sold separately.
Welcome to Skull Dungeon.
Wow!
Mighty Max.
Smasher, get up! Your brain donor is here. Me want brain. No way, slime face. Whoa! Watch out for that first step. It's not over, Mighty Max.
Will Max get fried? His fate is in your hands. Mighty Max, Mighty Max. You can collect all his adventure sets, each sold separately. Mighty Max figure included from Mattel.
Is Phantasm. But first, the Joker must be stopped. Only Total Armor Batman can prepare to do battle with Jetpack Joker.
Time for a little pick-me-up.
This clown's in for a total surprise. That nightmare is over, but Phantasm remains. So Batman powers up with the electronic crime stalker vehicle.
Sounds cool.
It's a fight to the finish, but Phantasm's no match for the power of Batman. Vehicle and figures each sold separately.
Graveyard Ghoulies. Squeeze the colored goop into the mold, or use glow goop, and out pop body parts. Stomach, heart, brain. It's Graveyard Ghoulies.
Graveyard ghoulies are a creepy crawler fright, so beware of what happens at night.
Creepy Crawlers Workshop. Your parents put it together. Light bulb not included. Graveyard Ghoulies mold pack and glow goop each sold.
Beam yet! Capcom Street Fighter 2! No way! There's Guile, Ryu, Zangief, Blanca, and Dalsim. What's a Dalsim? Oh, some with real ninja moves.
Hey! But Troopers get Street Fighters too!
Vega, Sagat, Balrog,
And me, Bison!
they look unbeatable. You know them, you love them. So correcto. Capcom Street Fighter 2 figures each sold separately. Oh, I like them.
Repulsive. Hideous. Disgusting. Obnoxious. Revolting. Wretched. Sickening. Blurp balls. They make you want to blurp.
White Ranger, activate Saga the Talking Saber and follow his instructions.
Thunderbolt power, now!
Now you're ready to fight. And sound the call to battle. And now, really grab the power cannon. Its 5 Powerball ammunition load is harmless to humans, but not to evil space aliens. Add even more power with the Power Gun Sword. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers from Bandai. Grab the power.
And Mr. Freeze aims to chill Batman next, but not Anti-Freeze Batman. Mr. Freeze and his Ice Zapper are out of control, but Batman's ready.
Freeze, Batman! Take this, hot shot! Ah!
Only Batman's Ice Hammer vehicle is tough enough to drill through this ice storm.
Chill out, Mr. Freeze!
Now the best is hotter than ever. Batman! Vehicle and figures each sold separately.
The hearts of men, the Shadow knows. The evil Khan calls on his fiendish friend Dr. Makino, but Ninja Shadow with blazing eyes has the power to stop them. Makino and Khan take off. Ninja Shadow chases them in his Mirage, each sold separately. Will they get away? Who knows? The Shadow knows. Now you can get a free Shadow Agent's ring.
It changes.
Just like in the movie. Send in 2 proofs of purchase from any Shadow toys for your free Shadow hologram ring.
Wow.
The Shadow knows.
Now you can be as clever as Kevin with Tiger's new TalkBoy tape recorder.
Stop drooling on me! Stop drooling on me!
It even has speed control.
Hi, kids. We're home early.
Hi, kids. We're home early.
Tiger's new TalkBoy tape recorder comes with audio cassette. Now have more Home Alone fun with Tiger's new Home Alone 2 handheld game.
Savage Hunter, Aliens vs. Predator, with awesome new Predators. Clan Leader attacks with whipping dreadlocks. And Stalker, glowing in the dark, fires his spear. Suddenly, flipping up his attack spikes, the wild boar alien charges. And the ferocious mother alien in her monstrous hive traps Spiketail, then covers him in ooze.
Ooze 'em!
Who will survive? Aliens vs. Predator. Queen Hive playset comes with mother alien figure and ooze. Other figures sold separately.
It's a countdown to the ultimate showdown, and Guile is going wild, diving into adventure, stalking the shadows, blasting like a blizzard, his punching sonic boom.
Spells on Bison's doom!
Now comes Street Fighter, figures sold separately.
Three heroes I go.
Hey, I'm back. Excuse me.
りたいのに声も聞きたくて心がね慌ててる青い空に飛行機雲を繋いだ手に湧いてくるパワーどこだって行けそうだよ風に乗って It's alright 大丈夫大丈夫大丈夫奇跡だって起こせる Here we go 行こうよ行こうよ行こうよ翼広げきっと何かがどこかで出会える日を待ってる Dreaming Dreaming そして扉が開くよなんでもない恋してさえ不思議だよね宝石に変わる一緒にね見てるだけでみんな光る Don't secret 大好きな大好きな大好きな瞬間が増えてゆくとても小さな小さな小さな種になってきっと心のどこかで
Yo.
大きな花が咲き始めてる Dreaming Dreaming そして世界は開く大丈夫大丈夫大丈夫奇跡だって起こせる Here we go 行こうよ行こうよ行こうよ翼広げ
They're playing bag. そして扉が開くよ Now I want to listen to Bag real quick. It's one of my favorite DDR songs. It's so cool that he's playing DDR with Big Nose. He's fucking Ryu, dude. What? Dude. And fucking Big Nose is E Honda? This is a good episode. I'll be right back real quick. The shampoo has his face on it. That's so fucking funny. I think this cartoon's way better than the 90s one. 90s one is okay, but him talking is just annoying.
視察の螺旋切なくて眠れないいつからか気づいていたよ夢の中泣いていること君はただ寂しかったのこの想い儚い夢なのそれ以上言わないで愛すれば愛するほど辛く僕の想いは行き場をなくして誰もが愛を求めているのにすれ違うばかり君も同じくらい辛かったんだね泣かないで誰かのことを愛してる君を責めないよ好きになる気持ちは誰も止められない僕もそうだから抜け出せず苦しくて愛すれば愛するほど辛く明日から二人どうすればいいの繰り返すのは変わり
Be right back one more time. No one gave a shit. Right, I'll be right back one more time. I'm just gonna go get a snack. Pumpkin seeds or something. But
Send your armies. There's no man or machine who can stop me. And you'll soon see I've come for vengeance for the first son of light. And I'm ready and I'm willing and I'm prepared to Are you wounded? Those of you who can, pick yourselves off the ground. Hurry back! Tell your leader you'll need more men. Send me the best you can. Send me your strongest machine. Fight my brother for him now. Will end with me. Is this the best you can? Is this your strongest machine? With one power now to see what vengeance means. The shadow, it covers your face, but your eyes shine just like mine. Step forward, step into the light. If you're ready, you're willing, you're prepared to fight. So be it, send your armies. There's no man or machine who can stop me. And you'll soon see I've come for vengeance for the first son of light. And I'm ready and I'm willing and I'm prepared to fight. Send me the best you got. Send me your strongest machine. Fight my brother for him now. Will end with me. Is this the best you got? Is this your strongest machine? With one power shot to see what vengeance means.
alright, I'm gonna switch over to magic for a little bit, and we'll see where that goes.
everyone loves. There's something really tragic and unfair about a comic book that everyone hates, and everyone really hates The Dark Knight Strikes Again. I definitely hated this comic the first time I read it. The ugly art, the weird digital colors, and the awful story makes it really easy to hate. But easy doesn't mean fair. So against my best judgment, I did the thing that nobody wants to do. I read this comic a second time, making an extreme effort to be fair to it. And to my surprise, I did find enough reasons to not hate this comic book abomination. The Dark Knight Strikes Again was published in 2001, when the Batman comics got a new editor who decided it was time to bring back his close friend and collaborator, Frank Miller, to do more Batman. One of the most popular Batman creators of all time had returned, and his first project was the long-awaited sequel to his iconic graphic novel, The Dark Knight Returns, and that was the first mistake. How do you follow up The Dark Knight Returns? How do you create a sequel for a story that doesn't need one? This was a one-of-a-kind story that captured lightning in a bottle and poured it onto comic book pages. A story so influential that changed not only the mainstream image of Batman, but the comic book industry at large. Trying to follow the grand legacy of The Dark Knight Returns is like trying to replicate the excellence of Watchmen, or giving The Killing Joke a sequel. These are impossible tasks, though not for a lack of trying. These are iconic moments in comic book history that are just not meant to be replicated. The Dark Knight Returns was also the final Batman story, so the question becomes even more complicated. How do you follow up the last Batman story? Well, you don't, because you can't. Frank Miller was aware of this. He knew he couldn't replicate the success of The Dark Knight Returns. He couldn't follow up the last Batman story. So instead, Frank Miller created something else entirely. Something that, despite how different it is, and despite how much it's hated, it's still a proper sequel. Now that might sound like convoluted bullshit, which is exactly what I thought about the story. The Dark Knight Strikes Again is not a Batman story, by any stretch of the imagination. Batman barely appears in the first chapter, where we only get glimpses of his silhouette in the opening sequence, his ominous shadow filled with a collage of pictures that all compete for the reader's attention in a disjointed mess of panels and dialogue, a visual representation of the inner turmoil in Batman. As far as visual compositions go, this one is clever, it's interesting. It is also very confusing. By the end of this 3-page introduction, we are presented with the big driving question and the main theme of the story. Where are the heroes? This is the biggest telltale sign that this is not a Batman story, as the central plot point seems to be focused on the other heroes of the DC universe. This becomes painfully evident in the following sequence, when Carrie Kelly goes on a heist mission to rescue the Atom. This is the first big sequence of the story, but we can barely follow what's happening, because we're too busy trying to understand if the combination of art and colors is intentional, or if we're actually having a seizure. Carrie Kelly is no longer Robin, but rather Catgirl, and she's dressed up as a cartoonish version of Chester Cheetah on rollerblades. This sequence introduces the kind of illustrations that Frank Miller will go for in the entire story, with the anatomy of every character completely broken, empty backgrounds devoid of any spatial reference, and a kaleidoscope of digital colors, which are so overloaded that it quickly becomes a painful eyesore that will probably make you wanna throw up, just like Catgirl does at the end of the sequence, when she realizes that she has swallowed the naked Atom. And this is the first of many more oddly sexual moments in this already fucked up story. Following the daring rescue of the Atom, the conflict of the story is revealed. The US president doesn't exist. He is a computer-generated image created by the evil and powerful Joe Rogan. I mean, Lex Luthor, who now controls the government.
I think I watched this video before already, but it's good.
And the general population. And just like in The Dark Knight Returns, the US government also controls Superman. Then the best character of the entire story shows up, and it's not Batman. The question has been listening from the shadows and watching how technology has become a weapon against people, with big and powerful corporations using computers to control governments and manipulate the public. The Question has this big internal monologue about the dangers of technology, which is not only eerie for a story that came out more than 20 years ago, but also oddly prescient in 2024, with the rise of AI and the incoming technological revolution. This brief but powerful sequence makes us realize that maybe The Dark Knight Strikes Again was not a monster. Maybe it was just ahead of the curve. The Question is great, it's interesting, and it's over way too soon. For a couple of pages we could believe that this story was made by the same people who made The Dark Knight Returns. Then that sequence is over, and then we can't really believe that anymore, because there's another heist mission where Catgirl, the Atom and a group of Bat soldiers crash into a military facility to rescue the Flash, who has been trapped for years and forced to run on a special treadmill, creating free energy for the country. Both the Atom and the Flash were prisoners of the government, and both of them were exploited. This might seem like a dystopian future, but in reality, Frank Miller was setting up a very dark and realistic scenario, because if people like these existed in the real world, this is what would happen to them. But then Frank Miller breaks them free from that dark reality and allows them to be superheroes again. Catgirl also has a different outfit now, one that looks a lot like the original Catwoman outfit from Batman Year One, and after saving the Flash, they also give him a brand new modern outfit. Later on, Catgirl and the rest of the Bat soldiers are gathered in the Batcave, where we get this panel of the classic Batmobile. The Bat tank from The Dark Knight Returns has been replaced, and with all of these developments, it starts to feel as if Miller is trying to tell us something. It's just not very clear what. At least, not yet. Then Wonder Woman shows up, along with Captain Marvel and Superman, the three heroes who are now following orders of the US government. But now we also learn why. Lex Luthor has allied himself with Brainiac, and they're blackmailing Superman with destroying the bottled city of Kandor. And so the story finally starts making sense. With all of the heroes of the DC Universe gathered together, it becomes clear just what kind of a story this is. It is not a Batman story, it's a Justice League story. But the greedy minds at DC Comics couldn't come clean about it, and instead they promoted this not just as a Batman story, but the sequel to the most influential Batman story. And of course, it wouldn't be a sequel without the US government sending Superman to fight Batman. The iconic climax of The Dark Knight Returns repeats itself, but now in the opening chapter of the sequel, and although the outcome is very similar, the setup is not. The original fight was the result of a political and ideological conflict, where Superman's character and moral code compelled him to side with the authority. However, this time Superman is just being blackmailed, removing any character complexities and reducing Superman to a helpless, one-dimensional character with no real agency. And although the rematch is a bit longer, it's almost a repeat of the first fight, with Batman taking the upper hand thanks to his resourcefulness, intellect, and planning. Superman is quickly taken down by the heroes that have sided with Batman, and by the Dark Knight himself, who finally makes an appearance at the very end of the first chapter, only to deliver a brutal beating to Superman, even more violent and savage than the first one. For several pages, this fight tries really hard to convince us that this is the same fight as the last time, but deep inside, it's not. Though the fight represents the same idea of a simple human overcoming superhuman odds, the execution is completely different. The first fight was a grand climax that thematically was all about the difference one man can make. It was a fight grounded in logic that lent plausibility to the idea of Batman's intellect, humanity, and dedication overcoming the established order, and achieving a complex and multi-layered victory that gives hope and inspires a whole new generation. The second fight, however, looks like an exaggerated, almost comical parody of the first fight. It doesn't have any logical, grounded, or realistic approach, turning it into a completely different experience that feels strangely shallow, as if it was created just as fan service that ruins the character of Batman by showcasing him as a fascist nut who refuses to listen to other perspectives and who uses extreme violence to crush any resistance, going to absurd lengths to achieve that. But all of this was actually intentional, because this fight is not looking to recreate the original fight from The Dark Knight Returns, but rather the old, classic fights between Batman and Superman from the Silver and Bronze Ages of comics, where they would throw boulders at each other and Batman would come up with kryptonite gloves to beat the crap out of Superman. The Dark Knight Strikes Again brings back those ideas, with the comically large kryptonite gauntlets that allow for a more absurd, gaudy, and, for lack of a better word, comic book kind of fight. And so the hidden message of the story starts to become clear. Frank Miller is rejecting any dark and serious elements in favor of the more fantastic and absurd things about comic books. But the reason why he's doing that doesn't become clear until the second chapter. This chapter is all over the place, with the opening sequence featuring a group of women called the Super Chicks, who are all dressed like slutty versions of the well-known superheroes such as Black Canary, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman. What are these girls doing, and what's their purpose in the narrative of the story is a complete mystery that doesn't make any sense at all, especially when by the end of chapter 2, the Super Chicks decide to join Batman's revolution, even though nobody really understands what it is all about. Meanwhile, Superman is in the North Pole, licking his wounds after the beating that Batman gave him. But then Wonder Woman shows up, and to cheer him up, they have an intense and violent sex session across land and space, creating strongly climactic imagery and also an earthquake that shakes the entire planet. Chapter 2 really challenges the reader's patience because we inevitably try to make heads or tails of this absolute nonsense garbage that is thrown out in the most bizarre, relentless, and mean way possible. And that's the biggest failure of the story, because it's not clear from the start that this is a full-blown parody. In fact, it only becomes obvious with the first appearance of Batman in Chapter 2, where he and Catgirl crash the new flying Batmobile into a building, taking down several agents and then proceeding to take down some more people with extreme violence and prejudice. The whole scene is obscene, as it presents us with a Batman who takes absolute joy and delight in breaking people's bones, faces, cutting their flesh, and maiming them with his new razor-sharp cape, before finally moving on to beat down Lex Luthor and slash his face like Zorro, all the while calling Luthor a thug, in the most ironic dialogue of the entire story. In the aftermath, an extremely smug and satisfied Batman puts his feet up and relaxes after a job well done in the name of striking terror. And this is where the story finally breaks it to us. This is a parody that is not meant to be taken seriously. This is Frank Miller's way of making a satirical statement about what the comic book industry had become. The success of The Dark Knight Returns is largely responsible for kickstarting the Dark Age of Comics, a time period where comic books focused on extreme, dark, and violent characters, many of which were inspired by Miller's work. This new wave of dark characters and hyper-sexualized imagery became extremely popular in the 90s, dominating a large part of the industry even by the early 2000s. And so when Frank Miller was given the chance to create a sequel to The Dark Knight Returns, he decided to turn it into a big commentary in the form of parody, where he looks at the 90s comic books dead in the eyes, he grabs them by the throat, and makes us look at the disgusting mess that his own work had inspired. The excessive violence of this Batman is just a perfect mirror of the popular, violent, and extreme characters of the 90s. The new razor-sharp cape that Batman uses as a blade is a parody of the weaponized capes of 90s characters like Spawn. The batarang thrower that Catgirl uses in this sequence is a comically exaggerated version of the batarang thrower used by the violent replacement of Batman during Nightfall, the most popular Batman storyline of the 90s. The new black costume for the Flash is a parody of
Oh,
the
game.
outfit that
I don't think I'm
DC
gonna
created to modernize and
do anything about
edge
that
to
thing.
Superman in the biggest gimmick of the 90s, with Flash even making a commentary about how the new generations can't tell the difference between old
I'll probably have to switch to
and
black.
classic. The female characters dressed as
I'm
sexy
about to
versions of
derate.
superheroes are a blatant satire of the hyper-sexualized female characters of the 90s. The same thing goes for the constantly suggestive poses and silhouettes of Catgirl throughout the story, intended to draw attention to the female figure, just like a lot of comic books of the 90s. This sequence makes it really obvious what Frank Miller's original idea was, and at the same time, this is the sequence that completely changed the course of the story. Because in this sequence, Frank Miller created a moment where Batman drives a flying vehicle that crashes into a building, and then 9/11 happened. This definitely qualifies as an eerie coincidence, but what's even stranger to me is that this was not the first time. In 1998, 3 years before 9/11, Writer Alan Grant presented a story in Shadow of the Bat number 69 called The Spirit of 2000, where a fortune teller warns Batman about an incoming disaster after Batman pulls the tarot card called the Tower of Destruction. Batman completely ignores the fortune teller because he doesn't believe in that, but then a mysterious new villain who looks like an evil wizard from the Middle East uses black magic to hijack an incoming airplane and tries to make it crash against one of Gotham's tallest buildings. Batman stops this madman just in time to avoid a major disaster, but all of this is just way too much to be a simple coincidence, and it gets even weirder the second time it happens. In the summer of 2000, 1 year before 9/11, DC Comics published the third Batman 80-page giant, where writer Chuck Dixon came up with a story where the Calendar Man becomes a dangerous terrorist, and at one point in the story, the Calendar Man targets an airplane and causes it to come crashing down right in the middle of Gotham. There's something incredibly dark and ominous about three writers coming up with very similar situations leading up to 9/11, and reading these stories is a chilling experience. It's almost as if there was some kind of dark force, or maybe this was just an inevitable moment, a tragedy so obvious to many fictional writers that it was only a matter of time before it actually happened. Frank Miller's story was the closest to the actual disaster, and this tragedy greatly affected him and whatever plans he had for the story. The final chapter was delayed for a couple of months because Frank Miller had decided to change the ending as a result of 9/11. In the previous chapter, there's a fight between Brainiac and Superman that greatly destroys Metropolis, and in chapter 3, Miller decides to take a closer look at the destruction of the city. Though it is still a near impossible task trying to follow any sort of rational storytelling, there is no denying that Frank Miller poured his pain into these haunting illustrations. If there's anything this story does well, it's this sequence that perfectly captures the tragedy that changed the world forever. However, this is not what the story is or was supposed to be about, because as soon as the plot of Luthor and Brainiac is resumed, the destruction of Metropolis is completely forgotten. The third chapter has a lot to unpack, so let's make it brief. Batman and Superman finally decide to work together, and Batman comes up with a plan to save Kandor. Batman sends Lara, the teenage daughter of Superman and Wonder Woman, along with the Atom on a mission to defeat Brainiac. Meanwhile, Batman spends some time connected to some kind of matrix that helps him stay alive, and then he allows himself to be captured and brutalized by Luthor in a moment that is confusing, ugly, and oddly funny. Batman did this on purpose because he knew Green Lantern was on his way to fix everything, and he wanted to witness Luthor's defeat, personally. He also gets to witness Luthor's death at the hands of the new Hawkman, which Batman allows because that's what the new generation of heroes does, while Batman looks old, broken, and outdated. This is yet another commentary about Batman and his relation to the new generation of comic book heroes, but the book is already so overloaded with commentaries and hidden messages that they actually work against the story. The oversaturation of characters, themes, and ideas is relentless, and it dilutes any kind of rational and normal story that might have existed, turning this book into a pointless mess that is extremely hard to comprehend and even harder to enjoy. In The Dark Knight Returns, the themes and ideas worked in favor of the story because they were clearly defined and focused, and although Miller uses many of the same themes and ideas in the sequel, they don't work because they are excessive, confusing, and intentionally mean. This goes to show how important good editors are. The Dark Knight Returns was edited by Dick Giordano and Denny O'Neil, two great comic book editors that actually guided Miller into creating a decent story, while in the sequel the editor allowed Miller to do whatever the hell he wanted, and the results speak for themselves. Once again, Miller criticizes politics, the media misinformation, technology, and society at large, but it's all done in such a hostile and convoluted way that any message is completely lost. There are very few moments with clear and defined ideas, and one of the best is the final sequence with Green Lantern, where he has an entire monologue of critical observations about Batman and the warlike nature of the human race. This has always been one of my favorite moments of the story, as Green Lantern has detached himself from humanity and can look at it from an objective point of view. He also comes right at the end of the story, fixes everything, and then leaves, making the whole Batman revolution pointless. A perfect reminder that Batman is not the character to solve world-ending crises, and that after all, this is a Justice League story. So yes, Batman's entire plan was ultimately pointless, which is precisely the point. And speaking of pointless things, it's time to talk about bobbing. For some strange reason, Frank Miller decided to bring back the Joker, except he didn't. This is actually Robin, and by the looks of it, Dick Grayson has gone through some shit. He looks like the Joker, he acts like the Joker, but he can't be killed. This Joker Robin doesn't fit in the story. It feels forced and a complete afterthought that has to be addressed once the main plot has been resolved. This character doesn't make any sense. The story is running out of time, and I'm running out of patience. For all I know, this Joker could be Miller's commentary about how it is actually impossible to kill Robin or the Joker, as DC Comics will always find a way to bring them back. Or maybe this whole thing has been one sick joke, and this Joker is the punchline, laughing in our faces for having wasted time and money, trying to make sense out of nonsense. I'm not gonna lie, this ending almost broke me, but there's one thing I do like about it, and it's the 3 keywords that activates the self-destruction sequence of the Batcave, the same comic book sound effects that became popular thanks to the Batman TV show of the 1960s. It's a rather small but fascinating detail, with a number of meanings depending on the reader, and the best example of how Miller is now embracing the same concepts and ideas about Batman that he originally rejected in 1986. The Dark Knight Strikes Again dares to look at the 90s comic books and asks the question, where are the heroes? It's a satire of the dark and gritty elements that had become so popular, and a conscious effort to bring back the zany, fantastic, and ridiculous aspects of comic books. The best example of this is the Joker, a character so outrageous that no logic can justify his existence, except comic book logic, to the point where Miller dresses this Joker as multiple obscure DC characters, as well as a very popular Marvel character. In this panel, where the Joker kills the Creeper, he is wearing the boots of Spider-Man, a fitting detail because both the Creeper and Spider-Man were co-created by Steve Ditko, and understanding this reference might actually help us understand the biggest reason people have to hate this story. So let's do it. Let's talk about the art. If The Dark Knight Strikes Again is supposed to be an epic parody of the 90s comic books, then why on earth Miller chose to create these garish illustrations instead of going for the more flashy and conventional art of that period? According to Frank Miller himself, it was all an attempt at doing something different because everything had become too damn realistic. He wanted to explore the comic book medium like it was done in the past, and with him using so many ideas and themes from the old days of comics, it definitely seems that way. But I wasn't satisfied with that answer. I knew there had to be something more to this than just making people upset about wasting money on ugly art. So I read this great essay by Geoff Glock, which analyzes the work of Frank Miller, and it actually traces the origin of this artistic decision to Frank Miller's one and only Batman comic from the 90s. The 1994 Spawn Batman crossover was the best-selling comic book of that year, despite the fact that Frank Miller's story was weird. At moments it was grotesque, and in the end it didn't make sense. However, that book was dedicated to Jack Kirby, who had recently passed that same year, and this right here is the key to understand the art in The Dark Knight Strikes Again, because Frank Miller realized how his earlier work had inspired a whole generation of artists to create dark and realistic comics, so he created this book with the intention of rejecting all of that and embracing the creative and absurd elements of the classic superhero comics, and there's no other artist who defined what superhero comics look like better than Jack Kirby. Jack Kirby was never known for his perfect or realistic art. Kirby would usually break the anatomy of the characters. He would exaggerate things and environments in order to create dynamic illustrations. And although he is one of the greatest comic book artists, his art can also be many times ugly and grotesque. In The Dark Knight Strikes Again, Miller was definitely trying to replicate the exaggerated and grotesque art of Jack Kirby. The panel that reveals Lex Luthor and Brainiac as the main villains is something absolutely out of a Jack Kirby comic book. Heck, Miller even went as far as illustrating the Martian Manhunter in the same way that Kirby would illustrate The Thing. This was a nice way of paying homage to one of the greatest comic book creators of all time, and although I think we can all agree that Miller's art failed big time, I can't really fault him for trying. In the end, a failure of this magnitude doesn't diminish his efforts as an artist, but rather it's solid evidence that there will only ever be one Jack Kirby. And again, I have to thank Geoff Glock's essay on Frank Miller's Batman, which is not only a great resource, but also prevented me from losing my mind with this story. This essay and many others are part of the book Batman Unauthorized, which is one of my favorite books that collects a number of Batman essays, and it's really good. But don't take my word for it. This book was edited by none other than Denny O'Neil, so you know it's good. I'm gonna leave the link to the book in the description in case you want to check it out. And finally, the last thing to understand is the reason why Frank Miller, one of the most serious comic book creators, decided to create a parody. This seemingly strange decision actually has a very easy explanation, because 1 year earlier, in 2000, Frank Miller was part of DC Comics' best parody book of all time. It's called World's Funnest, from the mind of writer Evan Dorkin. The story is basically Mr. Mix and Batmite destroying the DC universe. The two magical imps from the fifth dimension travel across the entire DC multiverse, destroying everything, and at one point, they enter the Dark Knight universe. This chapter was illustrated by Frank Miller himself, and writer Evan Dorkin takes full advantage of having Miller on board as he recreates the final fight of The Dark Knight Returns, but this time the fight is interrupted by the magical imps. Mr. Mix and Batmite are used in this story as godlike, unstoppable characters that provide funny moments and hilarious commentary about each universe they destroy. And this is where a large part of Miller's inspiration for DK2 came from, because when Mr. Mix fights Miller's Batman, he creates a couple of magical gauntlets that look exactly as excessive as Batman's gauntlets from Strikes Again. Then, as Mr. Mix starts punching Batman, he makes a reference to the comic book sound effects that Miller then brings up in DK2. Mr. Mix then continues to brutally pummel Batman, breaking his face and sending dozens of teeth flying off, just like Batman does in DK2. Eventually, Mr. Mix beats Batman so badly that Batman's face is brutally destroyed, grotesque and disfigured, with barely any teeth left, just like in the ending of DK2. And as if that wasn't enough, World's Funnest also has Mr. Mix and Batmite going to the universe of the 90s comic books, where they get really upset because all the heroes look like villains. They look like bad guys with an attitude, ugly costumes and massive weapons. Batmite starts to think that these are all imposters and destroys the universe because nobody can tell him, where are the heroes? Frank Miller clearly drew a lot of inspiration from this book, which came out 1 year before Strikes Again. Unfortunately, Miller didn't have any experience with parody or satire beyond this small collaboration, and it shows. He completely lacks the sense of humor and comedic chops that makes this kind of a story work, and Strikes Again is just what happens when one of the most serious comic creators tries to do satire. And that's the whole story of The Dark Knight Strikes Again. Does it really deserve the hate? Maybe. Or maybe not, because I think people hate the story for all the wrong reasons. The book was promoted as a Batman story, when it was clearly not. That part was wrong, and that part deserves the hate it gets, because I can definitely sympathize with people who got this comic expecting a Batman story and feeling ripped off. But if the hate happens because this is worse than The Dark Knight Returns, well, first of all, that doesn't mean anything. A lot of comics are worse than The Dark Knight Returns. However, Strikes Again was supposed to be a sequel, and that means comparisons are inevitable. And in that case, yes, this comic is worse, but it's also the same. This is what I mean when I say that The Dark Knight Strikes Again is actually a proper sequel. The ending of The Dark Knight Returns changed everything, exposing Batman's identity and starting a new chapter where he gathers a group of young people to start planning, preparing an army to fight evils worse than thieves and murderers, because his crime-fighting days are now over. Strikes Again simply follows that idea, with Batman rejecting crime fighting and becoming this revolutionary figure that wants to shake the social structures and political order. Everything about this Batman is different, from the characterization to the visuals, because that's the natural evolution of this Batman. But a lot of people hate these changes, because this can't be supposed to be Batman. But here's the thing, not even The Dark Knight Returns was supposed to be Batman. In 1986, Batman was the underdog, a not very popular character whose comics were at risk of being cancelled due to low-performing sales. DC Comics had no idea how to make the character popular, and as they were about to give up on Batman, they allowed Frank Miller to create a dark, twisted, and experimental story, because they had nothing to lose. This was a radically different story from any Batman comic that had ever been published. A total deconstruction of the character, a work of unconventional art that challenged every idea of what a Batman comic was supposed to be, taking a creative risk that nobody thought was even possible. If the story failed, it wouldn't have made a difference, as the Batman comics were on their way out, and this would have fittingly become his final chapter. The story not only succeeded, it surpassed everyone's wildest expectations, redefining what the Batman comics could be and turning Batman into a household name. The biggest irony is that 15 years later, Frank Miller tried to do it again. He created another experimental, dark and twisted story that does exactly all the same things as the original did on a fundamental level, and it became a giant failure. The difference is that by 2001, Batman was no longer the underdog. Batman had become an institution, the best-selling character for DC Comics, thanks largely to the formula that Miller created in The Dark Knight Returns, which is just what the fans wanted, what they expected of this sequel, without really understanding that neither of these versions were ever supposed to be Batman. They are both exaggerated caricatures of the character, with the only difference being that one was embraced by the people and the other wasn't. The Dark Knight Returns is a story that doesn't need a sequel, and yet Frank Miller managed to create a proper sequel, as both stories are fundamentally the same.
Probably a game, I don't know what the hell to do. It's gonna...
The intentionally different execution,
They keep
the
drawing like
problems
crazy.
with the story and the art, and the failed promise of a Batman story created this massive failure that became the biggest evidence that Frank Miller had become a victim of his own success. Miller's work had become bigger than him. The Dark Knight Returns is the reason why he will always be considered one of the best Batman creators, and at the same time, it's the reason why he will never create another good Batman story. The huge success of that story is what allowed Miller to keep creating more terrible Batman comics, because even after the disaster of The Dark Knight Strikes Again, DC Comics allowed him to create not one, not two, but 3
Yeah, I knew they had a
Batman
counter
stories.
spell coming.
If any other creator had come up with The Dark Knight Strikes Again, they would probably never get another shot at Batman. That's the real power of The Dark Knight Returns. We will never know how many writers and artists have pitched good Batman stories that DC Comics have rejected, and that we will never get to see, while Frank Miller got many more shots at Batman, all of them terrible, and all thanks to this one story. There's something really tragic about a comic book that everyone hates, and now I don't hate DK2 anymore. I appreciate Miller's efforts of rejecting the dark world he created and trying to bring back.
It's not even like they're gonna mill themselves soon or anything. They keep growing shit.
That the story was always
Yeah, it's
meant to be
game.
a
I can't do
parody,
shit.
and that it's not really a Batman story. If anything, the main characters are Superman and Lara, as they have a clear character arc that allows them to change, to grow, to evolve. And though I don't hate the story, I don't like it either. Because if you want a Batman comic to read and enjoy multiple times, there are 100 others that do it better. This is a waste of time and money in exchange for disgusting art, awful story, and a mean execution. It is not enjoyable or entertaining, and I could never, in good faith, recommend this story to anyone. But finally, after all is said and done, after going through the good and the bad this story has to offer, the best thing about it is that even more than 20 years later, it still gives people a lot to talk about. Some of it good, most of it bad. But it gets people talking, which is much, much better than to create a story that nobody wants to talk about at all. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and a special thanks to Wall Scaler Batman, John Papp, Thomas Murray, Rod Hanna, Alan Parr, Devon, Jay the Strange, and all of my patrons. Anyways, stay safe out there, and I will see you in the next one. Welcome to the complete history of Batman in the Gold.
No more Batman.
What's the worst Batman comic ever? For me, it has to be The Dark Knight Strikes Again. But when I said that last year, many people kept saying it was actually All-Star Batman and Robin, The Boy Wonder. And oh boy do I wonder, why is it hated so much? I mean, it's only the origin story of Robin. How bad could it be? Turns out, it was really bad. Just take a look at the quote that DC Comics used to promote this new version of the origin of Robin. This one's going to have a lot of babes in it. Oh boy do I wonder. Now, to be fair, the last time I read the story before doing this video was more than 10 years ago, and all I really remembered were, in fact, the babes, and also the memes. I needed to go back to the story to see if those were actually the only two memorable things about it, and to understand why this is the other most hated Batman comic. Now, in order to do that, we first need to understand how exactly this thing came together. In 2005, DC Comics started making some big changes, introducing first a brand new logo for the company, and later announcing a new series of comics. But all of these were not isolated changes, and to explain that better, I've asked my good friend Owen to give us a glimpse of just what was happening in the comic book industry at the time.
The early 2000s was a turbulent period for the comic book industry. As DC and Marvel grappled with the collapse of the speculator bubble at the end of the 1990s and the latter's filing for bankruptcy, they both embarked on new ways to reinvigorate their publishing line. For Marvel, this came in the form of the Ultimate Universe, a brand new series of books that reimagined characters like Spider-Man and the X-Men in a brand new modern continuity. Now, these comics proved to be hugely successful and spawned an entire imprint's worth of monthly comics, limited series, and events. Unsurprisingly, this caught the attention of DC, who in 2005 attempted a similar yet different endeavour known as the All-Star Initiative. Whilst Ultimate Marvel was an interconnected universe, meaning that the version of Peter Parker seen in Ultimate Spider-Man would cross over with the universe's other characters, DC's endeavour was a place for special out-of-continuity stories featuring top-tier creative teams. The two launch books for this new imprint were All-Star Superman by Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely, and All-Star Batman and Robin by Frank Miller and Jim Lee. Before I hand the video back to Salazar to talk about what All-Star Batman actually is, I wanted to add an interesting historical note. Originally, Jeff Loeb was hired to actually write the series, following his and Jim Lee's recent collaboration on Hush, before the writer exited due to him signing an exclusive contract with Marvel. In a 2009 interview with Wizard magazine, Loeb opens up about his departure from All-Star Batman, stating that, I was supposed to do All-Star Batman and Robin with Jim Lee, but I left for Marvel, and DC wasn't too keen on me continuing, even though Marvel was okay with it. But hey, they got Frank Miller in the end. I know that Jim and I will go back to Batman one day. Hush 2 is still in the cards. What nobody knows is that Art Adams was going to do the second All-Star Batman and Robin arc, and I started that as well. Full script, issue 11. Crazy, huh? And Arthur drew half of the book, outrageously beautiful stuff featuring Man-Bat, but it'll never see the light of day. With Loeb out, DC instead turned to one of the greatest Batman writers of all time, Frank Miller. Surely the man behind such acclaimed stories as Year One and The Dark Knight Returns could pen a tale fitting of the All-Star label, right?
Looking back at All-Star Batman and Robin, it's honestly quite shocking that it's hated so much, considering the art is so amazing that it's impossible to hate. I had honestly forgotten how beautiful these covers are, right from the very first one. But as much as I love them, I have to admit that these covers don't really illustrate anything about what happens in the first chapter. In order to get all of the psychological damage possible from the story, we have to look at the variant covers by Frank Miller, which are the complete opposite of the Jim Lee covers. This first variant cover is ugly and grotesque, which is a perfect description of the first chapter, even though the opening pages are gorgeous with the beautiful art of Jim Lee showcasing a bright and optimistic Dick Grayson performing at a circus with his parents. There is something very strange about it, and it's the captions. The internal monologue of Dick Grayson where he talks about what he's doing and we watch him do exactly what he's saying. It's flat storytelling, but beyond that, it's also weird, because the way he repeats the same phrases over and over and over is just not natural. What is Frank Miller really saying here? Is he just out of his mind repeating words and phrases like a madman? Well, maybe. Or maybe not, because what he's doing here is reinforcing, in a very excessive way, how Dick Grayson feels about his parents. He keeps saying how they are always there to catch him, which represents the safety that they mean in his life. And Miller reinforces these at the start because by the end of the chapter, he will absolutely destroy this safety. Dick Grayson's parents are killed in front of him, and when the police take the boy away from the circus, Dick's internal monologue changes slightly. Now, instead of his parents, it's the police who catch him, and they represent anything but safety. It's a really clever idea, but the problem is that in order to get it, I had to read this issue a couple of times, taking notes to understand the thought process and separate this one good idea from all the other nonsense. And believe me, there's a lot of nonsense. It all starts when the story hits us with the sexiest illustration of Vicky Vale ever created, without any warning or context whatsoever. And it's not just one page, it's almost 5 full pages of Vicky Vale walking around in nothing but her pink lingerie. This sequence is not really a story as much as it is a fashion catalog. And now we get what Miller meant when he said there was going to be a lot of babes in this. Frank Miller was just horny, and he really wanted us to focus on the sex appeal of Vicky Vale, giving us unnecessary images of her body and writing intentionally suggestive dialogue. He really hammers down those ideas like a madman with a blunt instrument, except his instrument is the art of Jim Lee, which is sharper than it has ever been, cutting deep into our minds with some of the most gorgeous visuals he has ever created. Now, Vicky's role in the story is to go on a date with Bruce Wayne, and so they give us a whole sequence of Vicky trying out multiple outfits and makeup, while repeating the same phrase over and over and over. After Dick Grayson, Vicky Vale is the second character that does this, and now it becomes clear what the story is really about. The retelling of the origin story is really just the concept, because the execution is all about Frank Miller experimenting and pushing the limits of how absurd and excessive a comic he could make. Now I want you to remember these 2 words, because they literally define the whole story. Frank Miller was not interested in making a good or interesting story. He just wanted to make it as absurd and excessive as possible, and that also means breaking Batman, which is exactly what Miller does as soon as Bruce Wayne appears, making him reveal to Vicky Vale that he has been keeping an eye on the young circus acrobat Dick Grayson, as if that's not creepy at all. Even worse is how in Bruce's internal monologue, he calls the boy a brat. Like, what did this innocent boy that you don't even know ever do to you, you maniac? And that was only the start, because then Miller breaks the origin of Robin, making the Flying Graysons kinda pointless. The whole reason Dick's parents are always circus acrobats is because they die while performing. but here they are shot, just like the Waynes. So what's the point of them being acrobats? The only answer is because Batman needed a young acrobat to avoid having to physically train him when he decides to turn the boy into a literal soldier, which happened sooner than Batman expected now that the boy is an orphan. Batman, however, has no problem taking the boy and dragging him into his world, a world of obsession, vengeance and violence from which there is no way out. Or at least that's what Batman tells the boy when he literally kidnaps him. Needless to say, this Batman is a psychopath. He uses snake poison on his batarangs to seriously damage the shooter, and he also repeats the same phrases over and over and over. But oddly enough, that's the only thing that kind of makes sense. It doesn't really work with other characters like Dick and Vicky because it makes them look stupid or something. But this Batman is so unhinged that it makes sense that he repeats stuff like a lunatic. Come to think of it, this whole story feels like it was written by this Batman, because only someone that crazy could come up with something this bizarre. If this was a normal story, Batman would immediately start working to find out who killed the Graysons, and the plot would focus on the actual origin of Robin. However, this is anything but a normal story, and the origin of Robin takes a backseat to make room for some of the most insane batshit moments ever printed in a Batman comic. The excess and absurdity of the storyline increases exponentially in the second chapter, where Batman doubles down on the kidnapping of a 12-year-old boy that he tries to drug while calling himself the goddamn Batman. Then he slaps the kid to stop him from crying and kills at least a dozen cops with a Batmobile that transforms into a Batplane full of deadly weapons. And all of that while laughing like a maniac. Now this is the real Batman who laughs. The second chapter also follows these themes of excess and absurdity. But right at the very end, this madman shows some signs of humanity and decency. It's a very short-lived moment, but there's a small glimpse of the logical, grounded Batman, somewhere underneath the thick layers of insanity of this Batman who laughs. Now, with 2 chapters into the story, I realize that it's impossible to take it seriously, because it seems like it's trying really hard to do some sort of black comedy, but unfortunately it's not too funny. It's just disturbing. Like, take a look at the variant cover of Chapter 2 by Frank Miller, featuring a Robin cowering in fear under Batman's shadow, and splattered in blood. DC Comics basically signed up Frank Miller so that he could torture Dick Grayson and destroy Batman. All of this insanity feels like Frank Miller giving the middle finger to Bill Finger, the man who basically defined Batman and Robin as the dynamic duo that we know and love. Everything about this story is insulting to the legacy of the characters and to the reader's intelligence, and the worst part is that it's intentional. By the end of the second chapter, it seems like there will be some progress about Robin's origin, but as I said before, that's just never meant to be, as the third chapter focuses mostly on Black Canary, because Frank didn't promise us a good story, he only promised us a lot of babes. And by God, he delivers. More than half of Chapter 3 showcases a blazingly hot Black Canary, working as a bartender and dealing with thugs that act as if they were in a strip club. And once again, Miller's themes are consistent, with lines of dialogue that are repeated endlessly to the point of absurdity, and an excessive amount of splash pages and panels showing a sexually loaded Black Canary in every possible angle and pose to enhance her fantastic body. These are 13 pages of excessive and absurd storytelling, all of which is completely and totally irrelevant to the origin of Robin. The only thing that happens here in regards to Robin is that Batman keeps talking down to the boy, as they are still going on their way to the Batcave. It's been so long that the clean shave that Bruce had at the circus has now become a full stubble. Hell, it's been so long that Dick's photo is now all over boxes of milk, and there are printed headlines of his kidnapping, which of course makes Superman super pissed off. Now, none of this makes any sense because it feels pointless and it's super frustrating, but only if you're reading this seriously, and that's the problem. This is not a serious story. Miller is consistent in keeping things utterly absurd, like turning the Batmobile into a Batplane and now into a Bat submarine. And of course, it's all done in big, excessive splash pages just for the sake of it. Oh, but as far as excessive splash pages goes, we have to stand in awe of the 6-page splash centerfold in Chapter 4, showcasing the Batcave in all of its glory. I really wonder if this is the largest splash page ever printed in a comic book. I wouldn't be surprised if it actually is. Now, the great thing about this moment is that after 4 chapters, Batman and Dick have finally arrived at the Batcave. But that's really the only good thing about it, because it quickly devolves into more absurdity, more insanity, with a Batman that gets mad because Dick is not impressed with his cave. This Batman is a literal man-child who goes around naming everything after himself, like the Batmobile and the Batcave, which is something that normally the kid Dick Grayson does when he becomes Robin. But here Miller flips the concept on its head, and now it is Dick who is the more mature and sensible, while Batman is an overgrown brat who gets weird about the death of his parents, recalling himself touching his dying mother's breast. And as if that wasn't uncomfortable enough, Batman then abandons the recently orphaned, traumatized and starving 12-year-old boy in the dark and cold cave, telling him that food will present itself, essentially suggesting the boy to eat rats. In the meantime, Madman goes to do some detective work, and in this story that means brutalizing more cops to interrogate them about the killer of the Graysons, the same killer that Madman poisoned in Chapter 1. And then he goes back to the cave, where he goes on a blind rage against Alfred, because the butler had the decency of feeding Dick Grayson, giving him a burger that honestly looks delicious. And actually, it did present itself to the boy. However, that is not what Madman had in mind. He wanted Dick Grayson to suffer and go through the same pain as he did, which is the complete opposite of what Batman normally wants for Dick Grayson. Normally, he wants to guide and protect the boy from becoming like him. Frank Miller is basically doing Batman and Robin but backwards, and at this point the only question I have is, why? What's the point of making the most absurd and excessive Batman comic? What is Miller trying to prove here? That no matter how bad he makes a comic, people will still buy it? Or did he just want to show how much he hates Dick Grayson? How much he hates the fantasy of Batman and Robin? A writer like that should never be allowed to write Robin. But here we are, in the most awful moment of the story, where all the terrible things keep piling up on top of each other until not even the great art of Jim Lee can make it work anymore. So I guess it's a good thing that Chapter 5 came out literally 1 year later, giving Jim Lee a long break to deliver some of the best Batman art of his career, which was utterly wasted in yet another horrendous chapter, where Frank Miller gets off showing us what he really thinks of the DC Universe, showcasing Metropolis as an ugly and depressive place, while the members of the Justice League are all horrible beings and not heroic at all. They all have to hide from society in dark places to argue between them, and try to agree on how to deal with Batman, as if they were criminals plotting a murder. Frank Miller has always been a controversial creator because his work is usually aggressive. But this time around, this transgression reads as actual hate
that's cool with that.
for the DC Universe, and that's awful. As I keep reading and watching the madman who laughs, gleefully destroying and brutalizing a couple of thugs, all I can think of is Frank Miller, gleefully laughing as he writes this insane travesty of a story that doesn't make any sense at all. Like in Chapter 6, when he introduces Barbara Gordon as Batgirl, and in her bedroom, she keeps poster of the Adam West Batman as well as the Dark Knight Returns, which as I said doesn't make any sense at all, because neither of those versions of Batman can exist in this universe. Now, the point of having these posters is to show how Barbara is obsessed with Batman and explain why she becomes Batgirl, but all of this just shows that Frank Miller only knows how to write one kind of female character in the Batman mythos. In The Dark Knight Returns, Carrie Kelly was inspired by Batman to become Robin. In The Dark Knight Strikes Again, the Super Chicks are inspired by Batman to join the revolution. Now both Batgirl and Black Canary are, you guessed it, inspired by Batman to put on a mask. So basically, Frank Miller's female characters in the Batman mythos are all the same character with different masks. But that's not the worst part about the writing of Chapter 6. The worst part is how everyone starts calling Batman as the goddamn Batman, without any logical reason in the story itself.
I'm the goddamn Batman!
Frustrated reaction about him calling Batman that, and instead of correcting or changing anything, he tripled down to the point where every character calls him that, which is excessive and absurd. And that's the whole point. And speaking of frustrating things, every time Miller remembers this is supposed to be an origin story of Robin, he makes some small progress with it, making Batman go after the killer in a brutal and excessive way. But then he immediately gets sidetracked with hot babes. This time it's Black Canary, finally making a second appearance and revealing that the whole purpose of her character in the story was just to bang Batman. I kid you not. In Chapter 7, Black Canary gets in trouble with some thugs and distracts Batman from what he was doing in order to save her. Batman then proceeds to beat the thugs, but remember, this needs to be excessive, so naturally the madman who laughs uses a Molotov cocktail, burning every one of the thugs alive as he continues to brutalize them. And because this needs to be absurd as well, Black Canary gets all wet, and not because of the rain, but because he just witnessed the goddamn
Not
Batman in
because of the
action.
rain.
And what follows is Miller's absurd take on a cozy and romantic sexual encounter in front of a fireplace, as Batman and Black Canary get it on in front of the burning thugs right then and there in their rainy dogs. And that's all Black Canary was really good for, because after this event, both Batman and Miller had no more use for her, and so she's out of the picture, for the most part. Which is for once a good thing, because now finally we make some real progress with the origin of Robin, as Batman returns to the Batcave taking the killer with him, so that Dick Grayson can have closure. But what follows is not remotely inspiring or heroic whatsoever. Dick Grayson has spent all this time alone in the cave, and it seems he's started to become just as violent, irrational and unhinged as his new mentor, which is exactly what Batman wanted. Dick has now picked up an axe that he uses to kill a rat, and then cut the killer's mouth open in order to interrogate him using the madman's methods of violence. Dick has now even adopted the nasty attitude of Batman, all of which shows that Dick Grayson has lost his childhood innocence, and there is no one to blame but Batman. However, the story doesn't want to go there yet, and instead of showing Batman as the one responsible for breaking this kid, it brings forward the one Batman villain that needs to be in every important Batman story. Chapter 8 introduces the Joker, and here I noticed something interesting. In the same way that Frank Miller inverted the roles of Batman and Robin, making Batman childish and Dick Grayson more rounded and mature, he does the exact same thing with Batman and the Joker, because this clown prince of crime is anything but insane or deranged. This is a tormented Joker, a freak that is almost depressive, with a permanent frown in his face and always brooding, always moving in the shadows and behind the scenes, orchestrating some sort of master plan. What I'm saying is that this Joker is more like Batman, while Batman is more like the Joker, an insane lunatic that laughs like a maniac as he goes around Gotham committing crimes. However, despite how serious this Joker is, he is still a cold-blooded killer, working with an insane henchwoman that is not Harley Quinn. It's just this crazy Nazi chick from The Dark Knight Returns that Frank Miller brings back. But still, I can't shake that feeling that this version of Joker is more like Batman, especially when he goes to meet with Catwoman, and on top of a weird sexual tension between them, she calls him Joker Man, almost as if she was calling out Batman. At first, I wasn't sure this idea of switching the roles of Batman and Joker was intentional, but then I noticed that the variant cover of Chapter 8 features an illustration by the legendary Batman artist Neil Adams, and it's a picture created as an optical illusion, where the images of Batman and Joker blend together as one, reinforcing this theory and showing just how much better Chapter 8 is compared to the entire madness that has been this story so far. Because besides the whole Joker angle, that actually makes sense, the relationship between Batman and Dick Grayson also starts to show some signs of improvement, as Batman starts going easy on the kid and encourages him to find a mask if he wants to join him as a crime fighter. And this is perhaps the smartest moment in the entire storyline, because we see the inspiration that leads Dick Grayson to adopt a heroic identity. Just like Batman, he had an emotional connection with an old movie hero, only in his case it's Robin Hood, inspiring Dick to become an archer, and to be perfectly honest, I absolutely love that idea, because it works perfectly. Robin Hood was the actual inspiration for the creation of Robin, but besides the name and the colors of his outfit, he was nothing remotely similar to the legendary archer. This was the first time ever that Robin actually had the chance to honor the main source of his inspiration and become an archer, which I think is also more logical for a 12-year-old boy, because it makes much more sense that he uses a bow and arrow, attacking enemies from a distance and keeping himself away from danger during battles, providing better assistance for Batman, rather than being a liability. And it wasn't even a controversial or new idea, because Frank Miller already did that with Carrie Kelly, when her main weapon as Robin was a slingshot. It just makes a lot more sense having Robin as a ranged fighter who attacks from a safe distance than having a kid brawling against adults twice their size. I would honestly love to read a story where Dick Grayson becomes an archer, at least in his early years as Robin, until he could actually join Batman in fights. And I would love that, because despite how much they tease that idea in this story, going as far as giving Dick his own outfit and calling him Hood, it never comes to happen because Batman simply doesn't like it, and instead he decides how the kid should call himself and fight. And although I think that's a lot of wasted potential, I also see the problems of changing the entire history of Robin. In the end, I think there's a message here about how the fate of small kids is always in the hands of their parent. Now, the only other thing that happens in Chapter 8 is that Green Lantern goes to Gotham and taunts Batman with a big lantern signal. Green Lantern wants to talk to Batman, but because Batman is a control freak, he sets up another meeting in another time and another place, which takes us to Chapter 9. The most important chapter of the entire storyline. And I say that because this chapter marks a radical change in the tone of the storytelling. It doesn't happen at the start, because as soon as this chapter begins, we are taken into one of the most absurd and excessive moments ever created in the history of Batman. It's almost exactly as one of those ridiculous and bizarre Silver Age stories, with a Batman that paints a whole room, Robin and himself entirely yellow. And all because Green Lantern's weakness is yellow. This is a moment that on a surface level is beyond stupid, but when you stop for a second and look at it closer, it's kind of brilliant. Because what Miller is showing us here is Dick Grayson's first actual appearance as Robin, and how does he do it? He presents us with a little imp that has become the mirror image of Batman, both visually and symbolically. Batman and Robin now share the same colors, the same goals, and they act together as one. Robin is like a little extension of Batman, always assisting the Yellow Knight against their common foe. And Robin goes as far as fighting Green Lantern by himself, using the same brutality and violence he learned from Batman. The same violence that almost gets Green Lantern killed and becomes the turning point of the story, as Batman finally sees what he has created, what he has brought upon himself. Batman almost made a killer out of an innocent boy, so he has to face the fact that he messed up, and now he needs to save Green Lantern, revealing his true identity to both Green Lantern and Robin for the first time ever. This is a massive change, because now that Robin knows the man behind the mask, Batman finally realizes everything he has done wrong, and takes Dick Grayson to the cemetery, where they both can properly grieve and mourn the death of their parent, in the most sensible, honest, and poignant moment of the entire storyline. And for that same reason, this moment stands out among everything else in the story, because it is completely out of place among the utter insanity that has been this whole project. For most of the story, All-Star Batman and Robin was an outrageous experiment on absurdity and excess, with a complete lack of restraint when it came to violence and sex, and an absolute disregard for characterization, feelings, or psychology. That's what makes this moment so special, so different. And to understand the radical change, it's important to remember the publication schedule of this project.
Your winner of this feature deals time damage to player. That player loses the game.
Between each chapter,
Hey, fuck, that's for real.
a whole year. So when Chapter 9 came out in 2008, a lot
Oh
of
lord, I didn't even know.
the story started back in 2005. And perhaps the most important difference was
I would have
Frank
fucking
himself.
killed it.
I don't know what happened to the man. But when you look up images of Frank in 2005 and compare them with images of 2008, there is
I didn't even know it would
in
it had that
he seemed
passive.
more happy and not taking himself too seriously. But in 2008 he had become somber, much more serious than before, a change that is reflected in the story. Now he's doing a serious Batman story, and besides whatever happened to him around that time, I'm convinced that he was listening to the critical reaction. He was aware of how people felt about the story,
Batman and Robin.
that reaction made him reconsider the whole approach to the story, because at the end of the day, All-Star Batman and Robin was anything but a good reading experience.
I think I'm gonna get going. I'm a little tired, and I always say I'll try to play in the morning. We'll see. But I want to play 11 some more. I haven't been playing 11 in a bit. And this season's almost done, and I got the diamond at least. I don't think I'll get the mythic. But I got to dive in, so that's cool. But it always takes a lot of time. And it keeps me from playing other stuff, unfortunately. I wanted to play some other stuff, but I'm just a little tired. So I'm gonna go. Later. Love you. Ducky Chaos, thank you for stopping by for the first time. Sorry I took so long to get started. But I'm gonna get going. Peace out. Bye.